Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 333 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Rachael. Rachael is Addy's mom, and Rachael came on the recommendation of Gwen, and it really was an amazing interview. I know it goes a little long, so I will let you listen and learn from Rachael because I think she has so much to offer. Gwen was so right in recommending her. I also do want to take a minute to announce this week's sponsor. So this week we have Carolyn sponsoring in memory of her son, Jimmy. And Carolyn is a big supporter of the show. Carolyn has given many ideas for some of the live streams that Gwen and I have done. So I so appreciate Carolyn so much. And thank you so much for your $125 donation. I also do want to make a little announcement. So you probably noticed a couple of weeks ago, I asked for recommendations on people to come on the podcast because I've had a little bit of a lull that people haven't asked to come on. And that has been really years since I've actually had to ask people to come on. Usually I have many people reaching out. And I have over the last years really trusted God's timing. And I feel like God's timing has been perfect in so many ways. And I sort of feel like it is again now because I had a lull and there's nobody scheduled past this episode right now. And we also have had a lot of things going on in my family that I don't want to get into details about, but some struggles that we've had that I really feel like I should focus my time on. And I think that this maybe was God telling me to take a little bit of a break. So when I called Gwen earlier this week about trying to find somebody to be on the podcast, she immediately mentioned Rachael. But then I opened up about what has been going on in the family, and she suggested that maybe I take a little pause and hand the podcast over to her for a short period of time. For 4 weeks is what we've decided on, and that Gwen is going to do an educational series for 4 weeks. You'll still hear my voice. I'll still do some introductions. We can still have sponsorships for the podcast. You will still see little video clips really of Gwen over the next 4 weeks, but that month of February is going to belong to Gwen. And I am just going to focus a little bit on me and my family and doing some good self-care that I always talk to others about, and sometimes I'm not the best at doing myself. So I'm going to do that. Gwen wrote out a little something for me to read. So I'm going to do that to just let you know what that focus is going to be on. So she wrote, in the next 4 weeks, we'll be taking more of an educational angle on grief. We know that our normal is storytelling and then learning from there. But during this time, we thought we'd allow Gwen to offer some more education and tools as we journey through grief. The first few sessions will lay the groundwork as to why grief is so hard and what things factor into our stories that can make it even harder for us. We will look at what the experts say we need in order to heal, and then explore the big emotions in grief and tools to handle them, such as anger, guilt, depression, and loneliness. And then the series will wrap up with how do I know when I'm getting better, and how do I survive this in the long haul? So I know this is going to be just a great series. I think it's going to be really educational for me too. And again, you're going to hear my voice at the beginning, but I'm just going to take a little bit more of a back seat and do the production. Another cool thing that we're going to do with this is that we are going to put out the video version of it. So we normally don't put out the full video versions except for our live stream, but we are going to be using our live stream software to record all of these, which means that we can put this out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube in their full version. So I'm going to do that later in the day on Thursdays. So the podcast release will be Thursday morning as normal, and then later in the afternoon, each of those weeks, each Thursday in February, we will have a video version for you to watch as well. Again, if you want to be on the podcast, know that those stories are going to start up again in March. So I'm going to be needing to hear from people in February if they want to be on the show. So if you would like to share your story on the podcast, please email me, Marcy, M-A-R-C-Y, at andysmom.com, because we still need to get those scheduled, and I want to be able to be off and running that first week of March. But for now, I just do appreciate all of your love and support and prayers, and I know this is going to be a great series, and I think it's going to be a great time really for all of us. Right now, though, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Rachael, Addy's mom. Thank you so much, Rachael, for agreeing to come on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Happy to be here with you.
I am kind of extra excited, I would say, to talk to you today because you came on the recommendation of Gwen. And everyone here who listens knows how much I love Gwen because Gwen's on all the time and she's just amazing.
I love Gwen too, and I am going to have to give her a little bit of a hard time for talking me up to sainthood, it seems like, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to come through like that, but I will do my best. Yeah.
I trust her. I think she will be right on the money. She's never let me down yet. So I think it will be great, but you can still give her a hard time. I have no problem with you giving her a hard time.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I think I'm extra excited because she told me virtually nothing except I know you're Addy's mom and that you would be great. So that being said, my audience and I are going to get to learn kind of about Addy and about you all at the same time. And that feels cool to me. I always like that. So it'll be extra fun.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Like no pressure.
No. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I love talking about Addy. I just as any parent loves talking about their children and bragging about their children. So I'm happy to be here and be able to share her.
Okay, good. Well, why don't you just go ahead and start out just by telling us all about your Addy?
All right. So my Addy was born on April 24th, 2010. And she's my only girl, my baby. And she, with two big brothers, was born fierce and feisty. She loved to wrestle with those boys. She loved sports and just very outgoing. And I have a video of her, one of my favorite memories of Addy. So many. She was about 2 years old and she had her little guitar and she was sitting in her little chair and you could tell I had just given her a bath and she was singing Itsy Bitsy Spider, but it was not the version of Itsy Bitsy Spider that we all know. It was Addy's version because that's just how Addy was. It was her own version. And there's a few times in the video that I stopped her and I was like, Addy, I thought you were singing Itsy Bitsy Spider. And after like the second time that I did that, you could tell I just really irritated her because she kind of waved her hand in the air and she was like didn't even, I was so irritating that she couldn't even spit out words. She was like, bah, bah. And I said, well, I like it. And then she was like, okay. And so she kept going. And then I said again, I was like, Addy, it was like the dog went to the store and the frog licked Addy and all of these things. I was like, Addy, I thought you were singing me Itsy Bitsy Spider. And she stood up and set down that guitar and she said, nobody teach me. I teach myself. And then I was like, oh, and you could hear me go, oh. And then I said, well, I love it. I like it. And she shrugged and she sat back down and she finished her song. And that Addie, very independent. All of her teachers said that they say leadership qualities, which I know meant like she just made her rules, like made
Yes.
the rules. And I
Uh-huh.
love that about Addie. I never wanted to like tap that down. I wanted her to be feisty and
Hmm.
make her own rules and make her own way.
That's what, I have got families. Yeah, obviously, I'm a pediatrician, and so I see kids all the time, and I will see kids that are strong-willed like that. And I will say,
That was a word I heard a lot.
yes, yes, I'm sure it is. And I will say to them, you know what the beautiful thing is about having a strong-willed child is that they don't succumb to peer pressure like other kids tend to, right? They just are confident in themselves. And so that'll make parents feel a little better because sometimes they get a little nervous about having a strong-willed child. Mhm.
I mean, there was a few times that we had to sit down and just go over like, I agree. Like you have some great ideas, especially, in school. If she was like, I mean, in kindergarten, she was sent to the principal's office because she didn't want to draw S's because she already knew how to make them. And I said, well, next time maybe you can help someone else make them instead of having a whole protest where you stand on your chair and you're saying, I don't want to make S's. And I'm like, could you do that next time? Help someone else? And she's like, yeah, I could do that. And I'm like, okay. So we had to, teach her, there's your way. And I think it's great, but you also have to listen to your teacher. You
Yeah.
have a lot to learn, So she did end up learning that. But,
Good.
you know,
Good.
she was 12 years old.
That was a great way to handle that.
Yeah, we're living life too as parents this time. So
That's right.
you just do
That's
your
right.
best. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
that's Addie.
Well, very good.
Very sweet, but very sensitive. She loved animals. She loved all little critters. I have so many pictures of her with a little toad or holding a praying mantis. She'd like to scare me with insects sometimes and just real funny. Love nature.
That's awesome. Sounds like a fun kid to have.
Mhm. Yeah.
How much of an age gap was there with the boys then?
About 5 years. So I
Really?
had,
Okay.
yeah. So my first husband and I we dated all through high school. We married very young and we had Logan first. So I was 20 when I had Logan. And then 15 months later, I had Riley. So we had two boys that were 15 months apart.
Wow.
And then 5 years later, in 2010, had Addy. So my boys now are 22 and will be 21 in March.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Addy would be turning 16 in April, which is crazy to say because when I think about Addy, which we'll get into, I still think about her as 12,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you know how that is.
I know exactly how that is. Andy is.
I'm like, I stop myself and I think, well, Addy would like this in the store. And I'm like, would she? She would almost be 16. I don't know if she would like this now.
Mhm. Yeah, that's with me with Andy because he died at 14. And now, interestingly, Andy's birthday is April 21st. So almost the same
Yeah.
as Addy. So really, really close to the 24th. Yeah, and he would be 21 now. So he'd be turning 22 and graduating from college. And it's hard to imagine that, because he was just in his orientation week for high school. And I can't really envision what he would be like as a college senior. I mean, I just can't, Like I try to sometimes, but it just doesn't fit with who he was as a, young teenager. So,
Yeah.
So do you want to talk now about what happened with Addy?
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think the context is important.
Right. And again, I don't know anything. So you can go back as long as you need to. I don't know.
Well, So going back, I had mentioned the kids' dad, and we had divorced when Addie was 3 months old, and the boys were 5 and 6.
Okay.
Then fast forward, without going into too much detail, fast forward, it was 2015. We had found out that their dad had died from suicide.
Oh, wow.
And so the boys were almost 10, 9, and Addie was 4.
Mm-hmm.
That was tough. Like, I felt like going back to Gwen helped me. I called her. I'm like, I need your help. What do I do? Like, how do I explain this to them? What do I say? I
Yeah.
hadn't even talked to them. She said, well, I talked to them, and I said, I've already said a few things, and I don't even know if I said the right things. And she's like, well, I think you probably did fine, but what did you say? And so I told her, I said, well, they had known that their dad was struggling with some mental health. They had known that their dad was struggling with substance use disorder. So I wasn't really sure he had gotten in an accident and had a TBI. So they had seen some changes in him when they had seen him, which wasn't
Yeah.
very often. And so I said, well, I told Addy, because she was 4, that her dad was in heaven.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I sat the boys down in a different room, and I said, you boys, you're not going to be able to see your dad today, because we had planned that. I said, he died. And it was like the air was sucked out of the room. And the boys were like, I noticed that Riley, he's my second son,
Yeah.
he got really quiet and started crying. I just haven't talked about this in a while.
Yeah.
And then I noticed Logan was he's my oldest, stoic. So,
Yeah.
I was telling Gwen, reassured me grief is very different and complex for children. That is all normal.
Yeah.
And she said, and then what? And I'm like, well, then Logan asked, what happened to him? And I said, I didn't know what to say. So I said, Bud, what do you think happened? And he said, well, Dad, I know took a lot of medication, so maybe he took too many and he forgot and he took too many. And I said, well, that could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
When someone dies, the doctors figure out how they died, and that could have happened, but that wasn't the cause. And he said, well, what was the cause? And I said, your dad took his own life. And then immediately I said, he had his brain was injured.
Yeah.
And we went through what depression is and how, if someone breaks their arm, you can see it. But with depression, it's like having a full body cast, but nobody can see it.
Right.
And it's just harder. So having those conversations years and years and continuing and going to therapists and going to Ellie's place, I just felt like I checked off all the boxes.
Uh-huh.
But there was always this looming, I call it giant, that
Yeah.
I just felt like wasn't done with us. And it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't. So, and I've gotten permission, because I've shared this in different spaces before, from my son Riley, who is going to be 21. So we did okay for many years after that, as well as we could, until 2022 in March. My son Riley was 16 at the time. He had struggled multiple times with depression. We had sought counseling. He had been to a few inpatient stays a few times. And he just had come home. I took his phone away because it seemed to be a huge source of anxiety for him.
Yeah.
And we were just really trying to work through it. March 6, 2022, I woke up and Riley was in a seizure in his room. He had somehow gotten into the locked cabinet that had his medication that was just prescribed, and he took all of it. Riley suffered a diffuse anoxic brain injury, so he was taken to DeVos. They told us, the neurologist told us, he's probably not going to recover from this.
Mm-hmm.
He was in not even a medically induced coma. He was just, they couldn't get him to respond to anything for almost a week and intubated. So we had a meeting, a round table with all of the doctors and in palliative care, and they said, we have some choices. We can keep him life support and just see, what's going to happen. They did all the tests. He didn't have a lot of activity in his brain. Or we can remove him from life support and just kind of see, he might start kind of keep breathing on his own. He might never recover, and then we kind of have to assess his quality of life. He may not even
Mm-hmm.
live through that as far as removing him from the intubation. So Riley is a hyper kid, was always funny, loved science, loved just an amazing little kid. And boy, and I just thought, ugh, I don't think he wanted this.
Yeah.
So on his 16th birthday, which is March 15th, 17th birthday, March 15th, we took him off life support. I agreed to give him obviously supplemental oxygen if he needed it, and we would go from there. Riley survived. Riley has recovered amazingly. So
Wow.
we were shocked.
Yeah.
He was in Mary Free Bed for, I think, a few months.
Yeah, it's a rehab hospital. Yep. Just for listeners.
Yeah, yep. He learned to walk and talk, and I mean, when he couldn't talk when he came home. We just got him baseline, and then he was in speech therapy for 2 years and OT and PT, and he was able to, last year, was able to graduate with an IEP from like a virtual school. It's called Link Learning, but he was able to go into the center near where I work now. And, he just keeps doing amazing.
Yeah.
That up, that's now. So when Riley came home, Addy was ready for him. She always wanted to be his best friend, but the pecking order of siblings
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like that before Riley's brain injury. He didn't want to be Addy's friend. He's almost 5 years older than her. He thought she was just a nuisance. But when he came home, she taught him how to brush his teeth. She taught him how to tie his shoes. She convinced him to let her paint his toenails different colors, and he let her. I have so many pictures of them. They were best friends, and she loved it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great to see.
So she was like, what, 13, 14, 13 at the time? 13?
She was 12.
12 to, right, 12 to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then became 13. Okay. Mm-hmm.
12 at the time. And I thought that was it. That was the monster that was looming all of these years. That was it. Now we're going to be okay. We're going to be good now. We're going to be fine. And Addie was starting to have some, normal friendship, teenage problems at school. Girls get cliquey and friends, and there were some other things that had occurred with a classmate that was a boy that was a few years older. And I just saw these red flags in her. Like, she was angry. She confided in me that she was like self-harming.
Oh.
And that was a few months after Riley came home. So I was like, there's so much going on. That's a lot. Almost losing your brother. We were just going through a lot. So I was like, I'm going to call the doctor and we'll just go talk to your doctor. And, you're not alone in this. Let's just see. You have a lot going on. And sometimes when people go through hard things, and kids do, you don't know where to put all of that. So we know doing this isn't healthy, but we're going to get some help. So we went and saw our pediatrician. We got her signed up to see a therapist here and where we live. And that seemed to help until it didn't. And to sum it up, in December of 22, I kept Addy home from school and just tried to help her. I worked from home at that point. Try not to get too behind on school, but she had so much anxiety about returning. And thankfully, the school was on board with allowing that time.
Mm-hmm.
I said, there's something really heavy going on. After the first of the year, she can come back. I would like her to be doing her work in the office. I can't even come there. She just doesn't feel safe there. And we just need to make her feel safe. They were 100% on board with letting her do her work in the office, even letting me be there. And that was the plan. And Addy said, okay, Mom, we can do that. I woke up on January 3rd, would be her first day, 2023, back at school.
Mm-hmm.
7th grade, 12 years old. And when I woke up that morning, Addy had taken her own life. And and that's our reality now.
Yeah.
I'll never, and I know that you've talked to so many people, and I know you've, what you've shared with me and what I've heard, experience that new life that we didn't ask for, right?
Yeah.
But it still seems unreal. It's been 3 years now, and I think that now I'm just getting to the point where when I wake up, I know that this is my reality.
Yeah.
But for a while, it was like, this can't be real,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm with you 100%. It takes a really long time to kind of come to that. And I felt like it was every morning I woke up and you would be like, yep, this really happened and this is really my life. Like every single morning, because you think for half a second that it's not, right? That things are different.
Yeah.
And that it's maybe not real.
And then you start spiraling. I know that I've kind of gotten good at catching myself and maybe allowing it for a few minutes, but then getting myself out of that. Did I hear something? I thought I heard something. Maybe if I would have gotten up and went in her room.
Yeah.
Did I asked her did I hug her before we went to bed? I know I told her she needed to clean out her guinea pig cage because it was starting to stink. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember asking her, hey, are you okay? Do you feel safe with yourself? And she's like, yeah, Mom. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, tomorrow will be just fine. I'm going to take you to school. You're going to do your work. I'll bring my laptop. We'll sit there. It'll be just fine. And she was like, yeah, I know. And so then I wonder, at what point in time did she change her mind?
Right.
And we'll just never know that.
Yeah.
And getting comfortable with that reality of, I'm just never going to know these things is something that I still work on daily, but it's just something that I'll never know.
Yeah. And that's hard.
Uh-huh.
For sure. That's hard. So talk about these last 3 years then and what that's been like and what you're doing.
At first it was very dark.
Yeah.
As you know. I guess I took for granted the amount of support that I've always had around me, but didn't realize it. That I realized right away. We had people just coming over and, they want to feed you, which they feed you so much food, which I am always great with, but cleaning out my cat's litter box and calling me. And I had friends that I know they wanted to ask me, like, how are you? But they got, like, overthinking, like, what is she supposed to say? Like, how do we ask her that? And so then we come up with different things like, maybe I'll just send you an emoji of sunshine when I'm thinking about you. And then you send me something back. You don't even have to say anything. And then a few friends were like, came up with this thing that we still use and I love and I use with many people. What color is your heart today?
Oh, love that.
I love that because it made me think. And
Mm-hmm.
and then since I'm not like a type A person where I didn't need to know what color meant what, and thankfully those friends are too, we just made up, oh, well, I'd say it feels kind of, I woke up today and it was a light yellow. I didn't feel, the sun was out. I didn't feel too sad, but now it's kind of turning kind of like a gray. I'm starting to feel a little bit sad, but I appreciate you asking. And just even being able to feel that for a few seconds is so helpful too.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Such a great way to do that, to just have a little bit of an image, and then you can kind of go as far as you want with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could just say yellow, or you could go into it like you just did. Like, well, it started out light yellow, but now we're going to gray, or, you can do whatever you want with that. And that's, I think, just beautiful, to be able for your friends to be able to give you that kind of permission.
Yeah. And there were moments where like, yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, actually, it's a pretty good day. I would say it's light blue. Or I'd be like, it's a day that's kind of a gray blue. It's the same color as Addie's eyes. And I'm typing that like crying.
Yeah.
But then afterwards I felt, oh, okay, I think I can do more today. Just being able to say those few things to someone and not having them try to fix it, or
Yes.
that was huge, just getting it out and being able just to say it too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think being able to express it is huge, and knowing that somebody wants to know
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, a really big deal. Because sometimes you feel like people don't really want to know, so you don't want to know what to put out there, right? And what to say to people. So,
Like I'm always like, oh, I don't want to, make things too heavy. And
yeah.
for a while I felt like, I think I've talked to so many bereaved people, so I know I'm not the only one that feels like this, but I felt like I was like this blanket of just heavy darkness when I would come into the room. Like everybody, I felt like,
Yeah.
and I know it wasn't true, but I felt like I was just bringing everyone down, or maybe even like people acted different when I walked in the room. Like they stopped laughing, or,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, geez, we're all changed. And now I'm changing everybody around me. You don't have to put kid gloves on for me to be around. Like I'm still me,
Yeah.
but I'm not. So
Right.
that's hard too.
Yeah. It is hard when you feel like people aren't themselves anymore around you. But then there are times too that when people are and talking about things, and sometimes that like gets to you too. Like there are certain things you don't want to hear either. So it's a balance, right?
Well, and like Gwen says and reminded me, just having grace for other people, but also for yourself is huge.
Yeah.
Where I've really had to, come into a person that I have never thought that I would be, but I'm so proud of who she is. And, I've never thought of myself as like resilient,
Yeah.
but I would never want to be either
Yeah.
in this case, but you really don't have a choice.
Right.
Here I am. So getting to your question of just the past 3 years, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the beginning, I didn't realize how much support I had. And now I feel like I've created so much support around me and with other people because it's so needed,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to suicide and suicide with children. I have met a lot of people that have lost a child, and we all realize something, that if we go to a support group, where I work at Child Advocacy, we have a survivors loss support group that was starting as I joined. So backtrack. Addy died on January 3rd, 2023. It wasn't my first experience with losing loved ones or almost losing loved ones to suicide, but it's was. So I don't know how
Yeah.
that sounds.
No, it makes perfect sense to me, actually, right?
So I had been going and helping, since 2015, being that person to help my children and people around me through the loss of their dad. But this was different. I had to actually feel a lot of different things. That came back. I felt a lot of anger again. I felt like, in talking to my older son, Logan, he felt the same way, where it was like, there's that anger, like, if dad wouldn't have done this, would Riley had done that? And would Addy be alive? We don't know. So going back to, expressing that anger of, this is so unfair, and feeling like you're robbed,
Yeah.
you're robbed from all of these things. How do I deal with this? At first, it wasn't great. I mean, I did my best, but I think you are in shock,
Mm-hmm.
So I barely remember Addie's funeral. I know a lot of people told me, wow, Rachel, like, you were so strong for other people. You were like talking to people and like comforting people. All of Addie's little friends, were there. And I know I wanted to hug them because I wanted to make sure they were okay.
Yeah.
But really, I wasn't at Addie's funeral. I was pretending it was someone else's funeral.
Yeah.
So that I didn't really know that, I wanted to comfort these people.
Yeah. I mean, the shock, it numbs you. And your body really is trying to protect you
Yeah.
because you just can't feel it all. You just can't feel it all. It's just too much, right? It's just too much to feel.
Too much. I used to tell my kids, they'd ask me, Addy asked me this a lot when she was really little, and she'd be like, Mom, how much do you love me? And I'd say, oh, geez, I love you so much that I physically cannot feel it all at once, because if I felt how much I love you, I wouldn't be able to do anything. I would just be sitting here and I wouldn't let you do anything. We would just be still. I wouldn't be able to hold all of that. And I thought about that a lot, and I think about it a lot. It's the same thing with
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
It's so much because there's so much love, and we've all heard that, right? We've all heard, the pain and the grief is just the love that's still
Mhm.
there. And I think that's true, but it's, if you hold it all at once and your brain's trying to protect you, like you're saying, in those moments of shock, because if you felt all of that pain at once, I don't think that you wouldn't be physically able to do anything.
No.
I don't even know if you
No.
can survive that, honestly.
No.
It's just too much.
I don't feel like you can.
It's like a system overload that physically, as humans, I just don't think that is possible.
Yeah.
So, I think about that a lot, and that, yeah, I have to be okay with, I was just doing my best then, and
Right.
I'll do our best. So after the funeral, I started to really hate my job. I took a few months off. I worked as a workers' comp adjuster for a big company. I handled their large accounts, and I worked from home. And I had really a good amount of support. They were like, yep, you can take the time. I took a few months off, but in that time, I was like, I worked really hard to work from home to be able to get Addie off the bus, to be here, take her to her sports. And now my house is pretty quiet. We have Riley was with my parents on and off. They helped a lot taking him to different appointments. So it was just so quiet in the house that I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was putting me in a very dark state of mind. I was talking to a counselor at that time just to help with flashbacks. There was a morning that I woke up and it was all dark in the house. I was alone and I was carrying my coffee through the living room, and Addie's bedroom door is at the bottom of our stairs. And we have an old farmhouse. So she has a glass doorknob with a big, like, skeleton keyhole. We don't have a key for it. But when her light was on, you could see the light shining through that keyhole.
Mm-hmm.
And that morning that I walked into her room, her light was on. And I remember opening her door and saying, "You're up early. Good morning, Peanut." And, and then I found Addie. And a few months later, I'm in the house by myself and I'm walking with my coffee. And I don't remember, maybe my husband might have turned the light on and been in there, and the light was still on. So I saw that light shining through the keyhole and I just started sweating, and I had to set my coffee down and I couldn't breathe. And, I never have had like a panic attack before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't swallow. And I stood there, and later I told my therapist this. I said, I stood there and I set my coffee down and I said out loud, "Addie's not in there. You're okay. You're safe. Addie's safe. Everyone's safe. You have to go in there and you have to shut off that light." And so I opened the door and I went in there and I shut off the light and I turned around and I shut the door, and we kept the door shut for a long time until recently. But my therapist said, "Do you even know what you just did?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "That's a type of therapy, Rachel. Like, you were able to talk yourself through that. And that is huge. You need to give yourself more credit."
Mm-hmm.
And so then from that point, I started thinking, maybe insurance isn't good for me.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to get involved in other ways. So I contacted Child Advocacy. I said, I know you have a coalition. It's the Substance and Suicide Coalition. Can I just join as like a community member? And they were like, "Yeah, of course, we would love you to join." And so I went to some meetings. It didn't make sense at all, especially with the stigma, not only for suicide, but suicide in children, because I've been to different conventions and they're talking about losing loved ones to suicide, and then they'll ask me, "Well, who did you lose?" And these are people that we want to connect with, and connecting with each other is healing.
Yeah.
But still, I notice sometimes I get, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I've never heard of a child dying so young."
Yeah.
And they don't mean it like that. They don't mean it to be like hurtful to me, but I'll say, "Yeah, I didn't either before Addie died. I didn't either. It wasn't ever a thought in my mind that Addie would take her own life. But I know that I'm not the only
No.
person, because I've met
Yeah.
one of my dearest friends now reached out to me, didn't even know me, just heard about Addie and had lost her daughter when she was 13. And we live in the same area and didn't even know each other. And so I was able to see her years later when I met her and I was only a few months out from Addy dying, and see her living. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I can live too then if she
Yeah.
can.
Yep.
And that's how I reply when I get that is, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I had no idea, but that's the thing. It's so shameful it's just so shame inducing for parents because they're children.
Yeah.
So we don't want to talk about it.
No.
You automatically think people are like, well, what kind of home did they live in? Were they abused or were their parents terrible? And that's not the case.
No.
That's why people don't really hear about it because it's really scary to talk about
Mm-hmm.
because we already put enough guilt and shame on ourselves to think, what are people going to think,
Right.
of everything.
And I know of people too who have lost younger children, and they will sometimes say it was an accident when it wasn't an accident because they have shame in the fact that it wasn't an accident for, and
Yeah.
and that's hard. It breaks my heart. Breaks my heart.
People have asked, well, was she depressed or was she going through something or were people bullying her? Was she being bullied? And I have to say, I've always tried to advocate for kids being kind, my own kids included. Maybe they haven't always been, but I don't think that bullying or anything else was a factor. I think Addy, as strong-willed as she was in life, would never, nobody could get Addy to do anything. Okay. So
Yeah.
I could never place that blame on anyone. And I don't think that Addy would want
No.
to place that blame on anyone either.
Mm-hmm.
It's so complex.
It is complex.
But there's nobody to blame. And even Addy isn't to blame. And it's just so complex, So there's no one way to describe suicide other than it's so different and complex for everyone that unfortunately goes through it
Mm-hmm.
or has experienced the loss of a loved one.
And you talked about too that you had talked to her the night before, and she seemed
Mm-hmm.
ready, and you're wondering what changed, and I've talked about this many times on the podcast too. Children's brains, they do spontaneous things. They don't always think about consequences and think about things. We think about all of us when we were young. We made dumb choices. That's what kids do. And they just, your mind changes really, really quickly because it's not mature. And so that's the thing. Her mind changed in an instant, and that can happen, and it's just impossible to know. It's just impossible to know.
Looking around her bedroom after she was, taken from her bedroom, she had eaten the salad. It was sitting on her nightstand. She picked all of the carrots out of it and all the lettuce and everything else was gone, but she had ranch on it and there was carrots left in the bowl. So I have to wonder, like, when did that switch when did she just decide that's what was going to happen? I will never know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
As soon as I went back to school here at Child Advocacy, I told them I was always like the kitten standing outside the door, like, is there a position? Can you hire me? I want to work here. I think I could be good here. I think you should hire me. And I went back to school. I kept going to the coalition meetings. And then there was a position that opened up that I was not qualified for. But thankfully, they liked me enough that they were able to talk to the board and they created a position for me. So now I work as their substance and suicide prevention support specialist while I'm getting my degree. And I'm able to help our community educator go into the schools. I'm able to help with their Too Good for Drugs curriculum in 7th and 9th grade and their Signs of Suicide curriculum as well. And we go into all of the 7th and 9th grade in Gratiot County, all of the schools. So even Addy's school. And that was kind of hard to go back into Addy's school
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
and see all of her friends and see them bigger,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not little anymore. But it's been so good. And,
Yeah.
what I tell them, especially when we're doing those trainings, is you can do hard things. Like, if I can do this, you can do anything, and you're going to go through some tough stuff in your life. You're going to
Yeah.
go through some tough stuff, but you're tough too. And you have people to support you and you have love around you. So, you can do things like this. And
Yeah.
if I can, anybody can.
Yeah. I love that you said it like that because I do think that's the best way to kind of talk with young people is to acknowledge like you're going to go through hard things and you can do hard things. Like you can do hard things.
Yeah.
I just think it's important because if you don't acknowledge that, some parents, I feel like they just work so hard on trying to make their kids feel happy. They just want their kids to be happy. And that's not what life is like. Life is not always happy. There's a lot of things that aren't happy. And if you can try to teach them to have the courage to do hard things, that's really beneficial, Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And actually, it was probably shortly after Addy died. Riley and I were driving in the car and we were coming back home from an appointment, probably speech or something. And I said, Riley, if you could wish for anything, like, what would you wish for? And, he's funny. So I think he said first, like, a Big Mac or something, like, right now. And, we laughed and he's like, you know, I think I would just wish to be happy all the time. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, that would be cool, but I don't know if I'd want to be happy all the time. And he's like, why? And I said, because I just feel like it kind of takes out the joy in life. Like, I don't expect life to be happy all the time. I think we have to find the happiness in it, and it's always there. It's just where it might just be a warm pair of socks, or it might be, a hug. And he's like, yeah. And I said, I know you hear me talk about her a lot, but and I started listening to Brene Brown like probably 12 years ago, maybe longer than that. And I love her TED Talk. And I'm going to quote it wrong, but I told Riley, I'm going to quote this wrong, but something that Brene says that sticks with me is, Riley, you're going to meet people your whole life that have a story that is heartbreaking. Everybody has a heartbreaking story. We just happen to have one that is not only heartbreaking, but would probably punch you in the gut and maybe take your knees out too. And he's like, yeah. And I said, but it doesn't negate that other people have hurt too. And it doesn't mean that we can't have happiness or that we don't have happiness.
Yeah.
We do. And it's really just where your expectations are. If you expect to be happy all the time, we're probably going to be disappointed. And he's like, yeah. Maybe I don't want to be happy all the time. I just want to be able to find the things that make me happy. And I said, that is a really good thing to work on, and we can all work on that. So, but just having those conversations, it just, I think about those things all the time, and I've always talked to my kids. Sometimes they say I talk too much, but I always loved hearing their ideas and just trying to see the world how they see it, because it's so unique. And that's why I love working with these kids now in the school. I was asked to start, they've always had youth coalitions here, but we called it Above the Influence. Just trying to promote healthy lifestyles and teaching them, what can happen to your brain if you start drinking and smoking and all those things before your brain is developed. But now we changed it to be an actual youth coalition. And we haven't been able to get much footing in 2 of our schools. So they were like, Rachel, how about you try those schools? And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. I'm old now. I'm not cool. Addy said I was mid once and then explained what that was. It's not like cool, but it's not like not cool. It's just middle, which I think was kind of a compliment.
Yeah, I would call that a compliment for sure. Yeah.
So one of the schools that I went in, Addy actually we tried to kind of change schools because I was like, maybe that will help. But she only went to this school for about 2 months, and then she wanted to go back to her school, which she never actually went back, like I said, because I kept her home that whole December. And then Addy died in January. So anyway, I went to the school that she went to for 2 months to try to start a youth coalition. And this was this past September. So, not that long ago. And so a few years after Addy died, thinking, no, none of these kids are gonna, Addy went there for 2 months. They're not gonna know me. They're not, it's gonna be okay. But walking into their lunchroom to hand them these flyers to talk about this youth coalition at their lunch that you should come and join, I was like, this is my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
I didn't like eating in lunchrooms when I was in school. This is so scary to me. And so under my breath, I was like, Addy, you're going to have to help me with this. I don't know how I'm going to talk to these kids. And this is high school. So mind you, Addy would be in 10th grade. So I'm talking to 9th and 10th graders and 11th graders and 12th graders in the lunchroom. And I walked up to this big table of girls and I was like, hi, I'm Rachael. I'm from Child Advocacy. We're starting a youth coalition. It'd be great if you join. I couldn't even set the papers down. They're sticking to my hands. The girls are just kind of looking at me like, who's this weirdo? Then one of the girls who's in 10th grade said, are you Addy's mom? And I said, yeah. And she's like, oh, I love Addy. We miss Addy. And then I was like, me too. And then all of the girls were like, I want to go. I want to join. I want to join. I want to join. So then they got other kids, and I have 20 kids in that youth coalition. There's about 20 of them. And I got in my car after that happened, cried.
Yeah.
And said out loud, well, shit, I'm going to have to do this now. And I was, and in my heart, I heard, see, I told you I'd help you. Like, you got this.
Well, and it was Addy. I mean, it was just Addy. It was 100%.
Yeah.
I love that.
And they're so fun. And, there's times where, like, I just want to have fun with them. I don't talk about Addy during those moments. I just do things, with the kids for the youth coalition. I want them to have fun. And that fills my heart up, just to see them having fun and learning these things. But also when I leave there, sometimes it is hard. I see them and some of the things that they're saying or how they're dressing. And I wonder, is that how she would be? But I want to be that weird lady, like, these aren't my kids, but I love just being able to be there and being able to bring Addy with me.
Yeah.
Because I think, I hope that she would like that. And that's not easy because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten this too, where people are like, how do you not think about that day? I mean, I have people ask me, how do you not think about that morning? We worried about you, Rachel. We thought that you would never be able to come back from that. Like, how are you doing these things? And I'm like, well, first of all, I do think about it. I think about that morning every day. Like,
Yeah.
I don't not think about it. I've learned to not sit in it f- for all day, but it's always there. But if I try to not think about it, that makes it worse for me. So,
For sure. Hmm.
there was a moment, it was just a few months after Addy died, because I've done a lot of things. So I'm doing this, but what I like to do outside of work is I started painting almost 2.5 years ago. Addie was very artistic. She was painting a lot before she died. And so I got the courage. It was a few months after, about 6 months after she died. I went in her room and I was looking through just all of her little folders and I found all of these drawings and paintings. And I just thought, we never painted together. I always told her, you're the artistic one, not me, but I'll buy you all the stuff and I love to watch you. And I thought she must have gotten something from it. And maybe I should try it.
Hmm.
I pushed it down. I didn't do it. I couldn't sleep for months. I was waking up in cold sweats. I was breaking out in hives. And my doctor gave me, I mean, pretty much would have given me anything under the sun, which to help. And one morning I woke up and I thought, you know what? This is not going away. This thought of painting and watercolor. I'd go to sleep and dream about it. And I'm like, this is so weird. I'm losing my mind. And so I just bought a little dollar store watercolor. And that night I put music on and I painted and never really stopped. I was able to get off all the medications months later, sleep a lot better. I wasn't waking up like with hives anymore. I think it was just like all of that
Yeah.
stuck that
Yeah.
couldn't get out. And all of these things that I just didn't have words for, I was able to just paint them. And I really at first wasn't painting anything. I was just looking at how the colors moved around on the paper. And I couldn't think about that morning. I couldn't hear the scream in my head that was there all the time, my own screaming of that morning. I couldn't hear that anymore. All I could see is the color. So I really feel like, again, I feel like that was a gift.
Yeah.
I like to think it was a gift from Addy, and I know that other parents that have lost children can understand that those are things that you hold on to and we don't know.
Yeah.
But I like to believe that. And if that makes me feel better, then I think that that's okay.
And I think that's beautiful. And that's funny. That kind of ties back to what we started talking about when you were talking about your friends and what color is your heart today.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, that really does that. Anyway, those two things tie together really, really well, right?
Yeah.
Because your emotions
Mm-hmm.
were the colors that you were using. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think thinking about the color of your heart made so much sense to you, right?
Yeah. And it's weird because they were asking me that before I started
I
painting.
know. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, yeah, but couldn't connect like, I really feel good when I answer this way.
Yeah. Hmm.
So from that, I started an art page. I've sold lots of different things on this art page. I don't have to ship it myself. I wanted like pretty much a zero responsibility. Like you can
Hmm.
order from this site, they'll do everything. But, orders from all over. I mean, even people, because everybody can view it that goes to that site. So and you can see where they viewed it. I'm like, oh my gosh, someone in United Kingdom looked at my painting? Like, this is so crazy. I wanted to tell you, when we were talking about colors, after I started painting and I was telling my mom about it, it made perfect sense to my mom. But she said, you remember that painting that Addy gave me? And I said, no. And she said, oh, well, I'll send you a picture. And it's like this watercolor painting, and it says, you make everything green.
Wow.
I said, what does that even mean? And she said, you make everything green, Grandma. And my mom said, what does that mean? And Addy said, you just make everything feel alive.
Oh.
So obviously she talked in colors too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's pretty amazing. In our group, in our survivors group, I shared that at our last meeting, what I've been noticing about myself that I've been able to do that I couldn't do before is, Addy and I used to hold hands when I would drive. Sometimes if a song was on, she'd reach her hand over and we would hold hands. And after she died, I would be in the car alone, and sometimes I would reach over and just put my hand out and drive. And when I would do that, I would just feel sad for myself.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. I would just put my hand back on the wheel, and I thought, oh, how sad. Like, I feel so sad for you. Like, you're reaching your hand over for your child that isn't there. That must just be so sad. And if anybody knew this about you, they would just feel so bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that feeling, a feeling like just this person it's just so sad. And so I did that for a long time until recently when I was driving. And for almost 3 years since Addy's been gone, there's a song that came on and I reached my hand over, I just reached my hand over and I drove and I noticed, I don't feel sad for myself. What do I feel? And I thought, wow, that is what love is, where it goes beyond death, that I can reach over and feel like she's still with me and do that. That's what real love is. It goes beyond what we can understand or comprehend. I told my group that, and they were like, yeah, it is. And, just being able to share that and not feel judged or crazy. I couldn't be more thankful for that group. I always suggest, especially if you're struggling and you just don't know what to do, that finding your people, even if it takes multiple times or reaching out, you'll find them. Just keep looking for your people because they're there and you're definitely not alone in how you feel, because it's there's no words. You have to paint it, I guess, because there's no words to describe that feeling.
Yeah I know that's been very important to me, finding my people, and I feel like this podcast has kind of given me my people. I facilitate a group for Starlight Ministries, and this is very good timing because our new groups start at the beginning of February, and this is being released the very end of January. So if you want to find your people, you can go to starlightmen.org and look in those virtual support groups, because we have people joining us from all over the world. So email Chris at starlightmen.org, and there are plenty of different organizations where you can help kind of to find your people. So I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your Addy with us and your words of wisdom. I think Gwen was right. I think she was very right. You're
Aw.
a pretty amazing lady to have on. So I appreciate you coming on. Anything else you wanted to kind of say in parting?
I appreciate you having me on. I'm putting this, my website, if you want to take a peek at that in the
Okay.
chat, just so you can share that. Like I said, on there, you'll see, like, you scroll down just a little bit more about me. There's a picture of me and Addy on there too, and why I started painting. And, you know, I just, I think that it's a gift, and it's a gift
Yeah.
to be here and to share her with you. I love talking about Addy. I think that we should be able to talk about our kids and brag about them. Even if they're not physically here with us, we still should be able to do that because they're still our kids.
They are. They are still kids. Well, thank you again so much. I appreciated it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.